When I was a child, every day somebody asked me to sing. And at that time it was boring for me because I preferred to stay with my friends outside. And probably step by step I thought, okay, it's my destiny. Probably I have to sing in my life, I think.
For more than 3 decades, Andrea Bocelli has been one of the most beloved voices on the planet, a tenor whose sound has filled stadiums, cathedrals, and living rooms across the world. But behind the sold-out concerts and the awards is a life built on hardship, loss, and quiet resilience that few fans fully understand. Today we're looking at the man behind the music, the struggles that shaped him, and why his story continues to move millions of people around the world. Andrea Bocelli was born on September 22, 1958, in the small Tuscan village of Lajatico, Italy, to a family of farmers who also sold agricultural machinery. From the moment he was born, his life carried extra weight. He was diagnosed with congenital glaucoma, a condition that severely limited his vision from infancy. Doctors at the time reportedly suggested his mother consider ending the pregnancy given the likelihood of disability, but she chose to continue, a decision Bocelli has spoken about with deep gratitude throughout his adult life. He grew up on the family farm in the countryside near Lajatico, surrounded by vineyards, animals, and the quiet rhythms of rural Tuscany, alongside his younger brother. Music entered his life almost immediately. He began piano lessons at 6 years old and quickly expanded into other instruments, including flute, saxophone, trumpet, trombone, guitar, and drums. It was a recording of the great tenor Franco Corelli, given to him as a child, that first opened his ears to the power of the operatic voice. By age 7, he could already recognize and imitate famous singers, a skill that hinted at the extraordinary career ahead of him. Then came the moment that would define the rest of his life. At 12 years old, while playing football with friends, Bocelli was struck in the eye during a match. The injury caused a brain hemorrhage, and despite medical efforts to save what remained of his sight, he lost his vision completely. From that day forward, Andrea Bocelli lived as a blind man. It would have been easy for a child to retreat from the world after such a loss, but instead, Bocelli leaned further into music, treating it not as an escape from his disability but as proof that his life could still be full. At 14, he won his first singing competition performing the classic Italian song, O Sol Mio, a moment that hinted at the destiny waiting for him. After finishing school, Bocelli pursued a law degree at the University of Pisa, supporting himself by singing in piano bars at night. It was during those years, in 1987, that he met Enrica Senzati, the woman who would become his first wife. He completed his law studies and briefly worked as a court-appointed lawyer, but music never stopped calling him. His breakthrough came in 1992, when the Italian rock star Zucchero was searching for a tenor to record a demo of his song Miserere. After hearing Bocelli's voice, Luciano Pavarotti himself reportedly urged Zucchero to choose the young unknown singer. That single recommendation changed everything. Bocelli's voice began reaching wider audiences, and soon he signed with Sugar Music, launching his professional recording career. In 1994, he entered the Sanremo Music Festival and won the newcomers category with a record-setting score, and later that year made his opera debut as Macduff in Verdi's Macbeth. He also performed for Pope John Paul II at St. Peter's Basilica, a striking moment for a young man who had once been told his blindness might close doors rather than open them. Then, in 1995, he released Con Te Partiro, a ballad that would become one of the best-selling singles in history once its English version, Time to Say Goodbye, recorded with soprano Sarah Brightman, took the world by storm. It turned Bocelli from a rising Italian singer into a global icon almost overnight. The years that followed brought a wave of achievements that few artists ever experience. He performed the demanding role of Rodolfo in Puccini's La Boheme, released the classical album Aria, and made his American debut at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., before being welcomed at the White House. He recorded the Prayer with Celine Dion, a duet that earned a Golden Globe and an Academy Award nomination, and continued to fill arenas from Madison Square Garden to London's O2. Yet even as his fame grew, tragedy touched his personal life. In 2000, Bocelli lost his father, and during a landmark concert at the Statue of Liberty, he dedicated his performance to him, turning a massive public event into something deeply personal. His private life has been just as complicated as his public one. His marriage to Enrica, which produced 2 sons, Amos and Matteo, ended in separation in 2002 after a decade together. Neither Bocelli nor Enrica has ever spoken publicly about the reasons behind the split, a silence the family has maintained out of respect for everyone involved. That same year, Bocelli met Veronica Berti, then 18 years old, during a chance encounter in Tuscany. He couldn't see her, but he heard her singing quietly to herself at a piano, and that sound was enough to spark a connection that would last the rest of his life. Despite a 25-year age gap, the two built a relationship that eventually led to marriage in 2014, held on the second birthday of their daughter, Virginia, who was born in 2012. Bocelli has spoken about meeting his daughter for the first time not with his eyes, but with his hands, tracing the shape of her face to know her. Veronica has since become far more than his wife, taking on the role of vice president of the Andrea Bocelli Foundation and managing much of his career. His sons have followed him into music in their own ways. Amos, born with full eyesight, became a pianist and has performed alongside his father on stage. Matteo joined him for the emotional duet Fall on Me in 2018, a performance that resonated with audiences precisely because it showed a bond that didn't rely on sight to be understood. Fame, however, has not shielded Bocelli from controversy. In late 2016, after Donald Trump's election victory, reports circulated that Bocelli had agreed to perform at the presidential inauguration. The backlash online was swift, with calls for a boycott from fans who disagreed with the association. Bocelli, who had known Trump personally for years through prior performances at private events, ultimately did not perform, but he never issued an angry public defense of himself. He largely stayed silent, letting the controversy pass rather than fueling it further. A similar test of his character came when his friend and fellow opera legend Placido Domingo faced allegations of sexual misconduct. Bocelli did not defend any wrongdoing, but he did question the speed at which decades of artistic contribution were being dismissed before legal proceedings had run their course, a stance that drew criticism of its own but one he delivered calmly rather than combatively. Even his voice itself has never escaped scrutiny. While millions of fans consider his tone one of the most emotionally powerful in modern music, some classical critics, including reviewers from major publications, have long argued that his technique doesn't meet the traditional standards expected of an opera tenor, pointing to his breath control, projection, and phrasing in demanding operatic roles. Yet for every critic, there have been legendary voices defending him. Franco Corelli personally mentored him after hearing him at a masterclass in Turin. Celine Dion once told a television audience that if God had a singing voice, it would sound like Bocelli's. Names like Oprah Winfrey and Elizabeth Taylor have spoken about being moved to tears by his performances. His career has essentially existed in the space between two worlds, technical opera and emotional popular music, and he has never fully belonged to either camp, which is likely part of what makes his story so compelling. Beyond the stage, Bocelli has used his platform for humanitarian causes for decades, performing at benefit concerts for cancer research, earthquake relief efforts including the 2010 Haiti earthquake tribute at the Grammy Awards, and other charitable causes around the world. Every year, he hosts the Teatro del Silenzio concert in his hometown of Lajatico, transforming the quiet countryside where he grew up into a stage for some of the world's biggest artists. His home, Villa Alpame on the Tuscan coast, has become the private center of his family life, a place where music, faith, and family come together away from a noise of stardom. What makes Andrea Bocelli's story so enduring isn't simply that he became one of the best-selling artists in music history. It's that every milestone came layered with loss, controversy, and personal sacrifice that rarely made headlines the way his albums did. He lost his sight as a child, lost his father as an adult, lost a marriage without ever explaining why, and has spent his career caught between admiration and criticism, all while continuing to perform with the same calm dignity that has defined him since childhood. His life is a reminder that the people who move us most through art are often carrying weight the audience never sees. So when people search for heartbreaking news about Andrea Bocelli, what they often find isn't a single tragic headline, but a lifetime of quiet battles fought with grace, a story about a man who turned blindness, loss, and public scrutiny into one of the most powerful voices the world has ever heard. Whatever comes next in his story, one thing has remained constant for more than 40 years. When Andrea Bocelli sings, the world listens.